Hi there, welcome to Fantasy Hub. I'm Mia, your storyteller. Today's story is filled with heartache, discovery, and a twist you won't see coming. So let's begin.
Picture this, Miami 3 years ago. Rain hammering the pavement like bullets, and me standing outside the tennis center with my racket bag and exactly $43 to my name. I'd hitchhiked from Orlando after my last coach, if you could call him, that told me I'd never make it past community college tournaments. "You're too angry," he said, "too unpredictable." He wasn't wrong about the anger. I was soaked, shivering, and about 5 minutes from giving up when this sleek black Tesla pulls up. The window rolls down, and I see her for the first time dark. Hair slicked back, eyes like midnight, wearing this confidence like it was tailored just for her. "You're blocking my parking spot," she said, but her voice had this hint of amusement, like she was testing me. "Your spot?" I shot back, gesturing to the empty lot. "I don't see your name on it." She laughed, actually laughed, and something in that sound made my chest tight. "Bridget Castellanos." "And you are leaving?" I muttered, shouldering my bag. "Wait." She stepped out of the car, and I noticed everything at once. How she moved like water, how her eyes tracked my every gesture, how she looked at my beat-up racket like it held secrets. "You play? Used to?" The lie came easy. Truth was, I still played every chance I got, but admitting that meant admitting I still believed I had a shot. "Show me." Just like that. No introduction, no credentials, no explanation. She pulled 2 rackets from her trunk and walked toward the covered courts like it was decided. And maybe it was, maybe some things are meant to happen, rain or shine. That first game, I should have been intimidated. She was clearly someone, and I was clearly nobody. But when I stepped onto that court, something shifted. My anger, the thing everyone said was my weakness, became my weapon. Every shot had 3 years of frustration behind it. Every serve carried the weight of everyone who'd counted me out. She won, of course, but barely. And when we shook hands afterward, her grip lingered just a heartbeat too long. "I don't need a coach," I said, because I had to say something, and that seemed safer than admitting what I was really thinking. "Funny," she replied, eyes tracking the way my hand flexed. "Your grip says otherwise?" What I didn't know then was that Bridget Castellanos wasn't just anyone. She was the anyone former pro, ranked in the top 20 before an injury ended her career. She'd trained champions, coached at elite academies, worked with players whose names you'd recognize. And for some reason I still don't understand, she chose me. The lessons started simple enough. 3 times a week at the public courts, working on my form, my footwork, my mental game. She never asked about my background, never questioned why. I paid her in crumpled bills and loose change. She just saw something, the raw talent, she called it later, the untamed potential. But it was more than that, wasn't it? Even then, even in those early days, there was this electricity between us. When she adjusted my stance, her hands lingering on my hips. When she demonstrated a serve, moving behind me so close I could feel her breath on my neck. When our eyes met across the net and held just a second too long, I told myself it was nothing. Student-teacher dynamics, that's all. Professional interest. I was lying to myself, and we both knew it. The breakthrough came. 6 weeks in. We were working late, the courts were empty, lit only by those harsh stadium lights that make everything look dramatic. I'd been struggling with my backhand all week, getting frustrated, slamming balls into the net. "Stop," she said finally. "Just stop. I can get it, Sienna." The way she said my name made me freeze. "Come here." I walked to the net, racket hanging loose in my grip. She was standing close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, close enough that I caught her perfume under the scent of sweat and night air. "You're fighting yourself," she said softly. Tennis isn't about overpowering the ball. It's about control, precision, letting the power flow through you instead of exploding out of you. Her hands found my shoulders, turning me slightly. Feel the motion. Don't think it, feel it. And I did. God help me, I felt everything. The way her fingers pressed against my skin. The way she moved with me through the stroke, her body aligned with mine. The way her voice dropped to barely a whisper when she said, "That's it, just like that." When I made the perfect shot clean, powerful, controlled, we both stood there breathing hard. Not from exertion, from something else entirely. By day, she was my coach, I whisper now, remembering. But by night, by night, the lessons took a different turn. 2 months later, everything shifted. I was getting good, really good. Good enough that people started noticing. Good enough that college scouts began showing up at my matches. Good enough that Riverside Academy came calling Riverside. Even saying the name felt surreal. The most prestigious tennis academy in the country. Their scholarship was a golden ticket full ride, top-tier coaching, direct pipeline to the pros. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of. The meeting was at some upscale restaurant downtown, all white tablecloths and crystal glasses. Dean Morrison looked like he'd been pressed from the same mold as every other tennis official. Silver hair, cold smile, handshake that lasted exactly 3 seconds. "Your improvement has been remarkable," he said, sliding the scholarship paperwork. Across the table, "Bridget has done excellent work with you." "She has." I kept my voice neutral, but my heart was racing. Of course, Riverside has certain standards. We maintain a pristine reputation, which means our students must as well. No scandals, no distractions. Nothing that might reflect poorly on the program. The way he said distractions made my skin crawl. Like he knew. Like he could see right through me to the truth I was barely admitting to myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I drove to Bridget's apartment at midnight, standing in the rain again like some lovesick teenager. When she opened the door, she took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? I told her everything. The scholarship, the meeting, the implications behind Morrison's words. She listened in silence, but I could see the storm building in her eyes. "They want you to choose," she said finally. "What if I want both?" The words came out smaller than I intended. She stepped closer, her fingers finding my jaw, tilting my face up to meet her eyes. "Then you'll have to break the rules." That's when it happened. When 3 months of tension and careful distance finally snapped, her lips found mine, soft at first, then demanding. I tasted her hunger, her restraint finally cracking, and I knew I was lost. We ended up in her bedroom, hands everywhere, mouths. Desperate, years of loneliness and wanting finally finding release. She mapped every inch of my skin like she was memorizing it, like she knew this might be all we'd get. "Sienna," she whispered against my throat, and the way she said my name like a prayer, like a promise, made me arch against her. Afterward, we lay tangled in her sheets, the scholarship papers forgotten on her kitchen counter. I traced patterns. On her bare shoulder, feeling her pulse steady under my fingertips. "They'll destroy you if they find out," I said quietly. "Let them try." Her voice was fierce, protective. "You think I care more about their approval than I care about you?" But I could see the fear in her eyes. Her career, her reputation, everything. She'd built it all hung in the balance, and I was the one putting it at risk. I took the scholarship. God forgive me, I took it, because turning down Riverside would have been suicide for my career. But I didn't give up Bridget. I couldn't. We became experts at hiding. Separate cars, separate entrances, coded texts. She'd show up at my matches as just another spectator, but I always found her in the crowd. Always played better knowing she was watching. The whispers started small. Reporters noticing how often she appeared at my tournaments. Other coaches commenting on our close working relationship. Students at Riverside asking pointed questions about my former coach. Ignore them, Bridget would tell me during our stolen moments together. We'd meet at this little motel outside the city, the kind of place that didn't ask questions and took cash. It was seedy and perfect in hours. But ignoring them got harder as I got better. I was climbing the rankings, winning bigger tournaments, getting more attention. And with attention came scrutiny. The breaking point, no pun intended, came at a tournament in Key Biscayne. I just won my quarterfinal match, and Bridget was waiting in the hallway outside the locker rooms. We thought we were alone. God, we were safe. She pulled me into an alcove, hands tangling in my hair, mouth finding mine with 3 days' worth of pent-up need. I missed you, she breathed against my lips. Missed you too, I whispered back, losing myself in her touch. That's when the camera flash went off. Some paparazzi bastard had been following me, hoping for scandal, and boy, did he get it. The photo was blurry but unmistakable, me in Bridget's arms, her mouth on mine, both of us lost in each other. The story broke the next morning. Rising. Star's secret affair with former coach. The photo was plastered across every sports blog, every gossip site. My phone rang non-stop, reporters, agents, officials from Riverside, all demanding answers. Morrison's call came at 6 a.m. sharp. Pack your things, he said without preamble. Your scholarship is terminated, effective immediately. Sir, if you just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You violated your contract. The morality clause was quite clear. The line went dead. I sat on my hotel bed, staring at the phone, feeling like my world had just collapsed. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed gone in a single flash of light. Bridget found me there an hour later, courtesy of a key card and a bribed hotel clerk. I'm sorry, she said, sitting beside me. This is my fault. I should have been more careful. No. I turned to face her, seeing my own devastation reflected in her eyes. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry about any of it. Sienna, I mean it. I took her hands in mine, gripping tight. I'm tired of hiding. Tired of pretending this isn't real. Tired of letting other people decide what my life should look like. That's when the idea hit me. Crazy, impossible, but suddenly crystal clear. We're going to start our own academy. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. With what money? What credentials? Sienna, be realistic. I'm being realistic. Realistic about what the tennis world really needs. I stood up, pacing the small hotel room as the plan took shape. A place for players who don't fit the mold. Who are too angry, too unpredictable. Too real for places like Riverside. A place where talent matters more than image. I stopped in front of her, heart hammering but voice steady. Breaking Point Academy, for players who refuse to break. She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Then slowly she smiled. You're absolutely insane. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Starting Breaking Point Academy was like trying to build a rocket ship out of spare parts and determination. We had no money, no facilities, no official backing. What we had was each other, a shared vision, and a growing list of players who'd been discarded by the establishment. We found Anne, abandoned tennis facility in Coconut Grove, 4 courts with cracked surfaces and rusted nets, but it was ours. Bridget somehow convinced the owner to let us lease it for almost nothing. Probably by charming him the same way she charmed me. Our first students were the misfits. The ones who'd been kicked out of other programs for attitude problems, financial issues, or like me, for refusing to conform. They came to us angry, defensive, expecting another disappointment. Instead, they found home. Marcus was our first kid from Liberty City with a serve like lightning and a mouth that got him. In trouble. He'd been bounced from 3 academies before finding us. Then came Sophia, whose parents couldn't afford the elite programs, but whose backhand could stop traffic. Then David, who'd been dismissed from Riverside for lack of focus, but whose focus was laser sharp once he found something worth fighting for. Within 6 months, we had 20 students. Within a year, we had 40 and a waiting list twice as long. Bridget and I worked 18-hour days, coaching, recruiting, fundraising, doing whatever it took to keep the dream alive. We slept in the office more nights than not, surviving on coffee and sheer willpower. But we were happy. God, we were happy. No more hiding. No more separate cars or coded messages. We were partners in every sense in business, in life, in love. The tennis world could whisper all they wanted. We were building something beautiful. 2 years in, our students started winning, really winning. Sophia made it to the finals of a junior tournament. Marcus got a scholarship offer from Duke. David was ranked in the top 100 nationally for his age group. And me, I was still playing, still climbing, still proving everyone wrong. But now I was doing it as myself, no image. Consultants, no media training, no apologies for who I loved. The Miami Open was my chance to prove that Breaking Point Academy could produce champions. Not just good players, but champions. I'd made it through qualifying, through the early rounds, riding a wave of momentum and stubborn determination. The semifinals were against Katarina Volkov, a player I'd idolized since I was 15. She was everything I wasn't: polished, proper product of the European Academy system. The media played it up as old school versus new school, establishment versus rebellion. They had no idea how right they were. I could see Bridget in the crowd, sitting in our usual spot, third row, center court. She wore her lucky red jacket, the one from our first real tournament together. Even from across the stadium, I felt anchored by her presence. The first set was brutal. Volkov's experience showed, and I found myself down 6-4 before I knew what hit me. During the changeover, I looked toward Bridget, and she touched her heart, our signal. Remember why you're fighting. The second set was different. I played with everything I had, all the anger, all the passion, all the love that had brought me this far. I took it 6-3, and suddenly we're even. The third set was where champions are made. Every point mattered. Every shot carried weight. We traded games, traded momentum, traded everything we had. At 5-5, with the crowd on its feet, I faced match point on my serve. Time slowed. I could hear Bridget's voice from all those late night practice sessions. Control, precision, let the power flow through you. I served. Ace. The crowd exploded. 2 points later, I won the match. But what happened next, that's what really mattered. As Volkov and I shook hands at the net, as the crowd cheered and cameras flashed, I looked into the stands and found Bridget. She was crying. Proud, happy tears that she didn't bother to hide. Without thinking, without caring about protocols or image or what anyone else thought, I ran into the stands, pushed through the crowd of officials and media, ignoring their shouts of protest. I found her 3 rows up, pulled her to her feet, and kissed her. Right there, center court of the Miami Open, with thousands watching and cameras rolling, and the tennis world collectively holding its breath. I kissed the woman who'd saved me, who'd believed in me when no one else would, who'd given up everything to help me build something better. When we finally broke apart, she was laughing through her tears. "Still think you don't need a coach?" she whispered against my ear. "I think I need you in every way possible," I whispered back. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered, some booed, some just stared in shock. The tennis officials were furious. The media went absolutely insane. I didn't care about any of it. That kiss changed everything and nothing at all. The tennis establishment tried to punish us, of course. Fines, sanctions, threats to ban me from tournaments. But something funny happened. The public was on our side. Turns out people were tired of the sanitized corporate version of professional tennis. They wanted real emotion, real stories, real people fighting for something that mattered. Our story became bigger than tennis. It became about love, about refusing to compromise who you are, about building something beautiful from nothing. Sponsorship offers poured in, not from the traditional tennis companies, but from brands that understood what we represented. Within 6 months, Breaking Point Academy had a real facility, professional courts, and a coaching staff of 12. But the best part, the students. They kept coming, not just the misfits now, but players from all backgrounds who wanted something different, who wanted to be coached by people who understood that tennis, at its core, is about passion. 3 years later, Breaking Point Academy is thriving. We have over 200 students, from beginners to professionals. 5 of our graduates are playing on the tour. Marcus just signed his first endorsement deal. Sophia won her first WTA title last month. And Bridget and I, we're still here, still fighting, still building. The media has moved on to other scandals, but we remain. Stronger than ever. You want to know the real secret? The thing they don't tell you in the fairy tales or the romance movies? Love isn't the dramatic gestures or the passionate moments, though we've had plenty of both. Love is Bridget bringing me coffee at 5 a.m. when I'm reviewing match footage. It's me rubbing her shoulders after a 14-hour day of coaching. It's building something together that's bigger than either of us alone. Love is choosing each other. Every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. People ask if I regret giving up the traditional path, if I wonder what would have happened if I'd chosen differently, if I'd stayed at Riverside, if I'd hidden who I was and played their game. The answer is simple. I can't regret the choice that led me to myself. Every night when the courts are quiet and the students have gone home, Bridget and I walk through Breaking Point Academy. We see what we've built together, not just a business, but a community. A place where being different isn't a weakness, it's a strength. Sometimes she takes my hand in the darkness, and we stand there listening to the echo of our dreams made real. Still think this was crazy? She asks. The best kind of crazy, I always reply. Because sometimes the greatest victories aren't the ones the world sees on television or reads about in magazines. Sometimes the greatest victories are the quiet ones, the personal ones, the ones you steal in the dark with the woman who taught you how to fight and how to love. I traded everything. Safe for something real, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. That's my story. The real version, no sanitizing, no apologies. It's messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. It's about tennis, yes, but it's really about so much more. It's about finding the courage to be yourself, even when the world wants you to be someone else. It's about love that refuses to hide. It's about building something beautiful from the ground up with calloused hands and stubborn hearts. It's about breaking all the rules that never mattered anyway. And you know what? We're just getting started.